Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bald and Bonkers Show. Join your hosts Christopher Mole and Dakota Franson as they take you on a wild ride through the world of the supernatural, with a humorous twist that'll have you laughing and shaking in your boots at the same time. From ghosts to aliens to cryptids, no topic is off limits on this show. And the best part? You don't have to be a believer to join in on the fun. So grab a drink, kick back, and tune in every weekend for new episodes. And if you want even more of the Bald and Bonkers experience, be sure to subscribe to our Patreon page for exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. Let's get weird. Oh, and for the whiners out there, viewer discretion is advised. There you go, you entitled pricks.
Oh, I didn't realize we weren't live already. Okay.
I know. It's like, that's why I was trying to give like a countdown just before we went on, just so it didn't cut you off. But ladies and gentlemen, we are here today with Dan Willis, who was part of the 2001 press conference involving Dr. Stephen Greer in trying to push forward disclosure. And obviously, if you know Elena Denon, she's been on our channel several times. She's helped me personally with a number of cases. You probably come across this gentleman. Welcome, Dan. Thank you for coming on. I highly expect tonight is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, honored to join your show, Dakota and Christopher. And hey, what you talking about, Willis?
I've been really looking forward to this. I've been really looking forward to this. It's a good job you came in a little bit earlier so as you could get to understand my accent.
Oh.
Yeah, see, if we're ever running late, there's one of two things going on, ladies and gentlemen. We're either having technical issues, which hasn't happened so much since we switched platforms, or it's the Scottish gift of gab.
Look, I can't help it. I'm Scottish, and that's just the Scottishness coming out in me, you know. And I know sometimes I speak really quick. I mean, look, the last time we had Elena Denon on, before the start of the show, she was crying. I was that funny, and that was epic, you know.
Yeah, it did seem like she was really needing it.
Yeah.
Got a lot of Scottish in me too, along with French and the rest of the European mutt blood.
Yeah, there's a lot of Scottish in the United States, you know. There really is. So Dan, thank you so much for coming on. I've been really looking forward to this because I've actually looked up a lot about what you talk about. And before the start of the show, you were talking about crystals. I found that fascinating because crystals, oh my God, I've spent a lot of money on crystals. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about your crystals?
Yes. You know, my journey started a long time ago. 1969, I had a top secret security clearance in naval communications, receiving official secret classified reports of Navy ships reporting flying discs coming out of the ocean, shooting off into space, thousands of miles per hour. You know, I going to chief of naval operations. Was aware the government was aware of these. Either we had alien bases on the bottom of our ocean, or we have technology that people aren't aware of. So, you know, it started my inquiry that, hey, there's something to this. You know, this is official communications. So over the decades, you know, I've been researching. You know, doing things like traveling to Area 51, the first time meeting with Bob Lazar in 1993 and recording it. And I became involved in this event behind me that was over 2 decades ago in May 9th, 2001, National Press Club, which Dr. Stephen Greer over here, what brought this about was a legal constitutional government has been denied access for decades, going back to the Eisenhower administration, which goes into a long history. And that's what brought about him collecting from 1993 when he met with the CIA director who was denied access, James Woolsey, witnesses, which he collected from 1993 to the year 2001, over 500 military intelligence witnesses. I was the 100th videotape witness. 21 of them out of the 500 were willing to testify under oath before a congressional hearing. Each one of us stated after we gave our testimony that we're willing to testify under oath. You know, it's penalty of perjury, breaking national security oaths. We didn't have whistleblower protection back in 2001 like they do today. Myself being I was a broadcast engineer and ABC newsman, so the place was the largest event in the history of the National Press Club. 22 cameras in the back row. The place was packed with reporters. I was well aware of the other witnesses and what they were disclosing. You know, bases on the other side of the moon, 57 different species already categorized. What happened when we went to the moon? The astronauts are sworn to secrecy. They're airbrushing UFOs out. President CIA directors being denied access. We had 0-point energy. We had faster than light craft developed back in the 1950s. You know, explosive testimonies, which the mainstream media, I started my education of how they control the perceptions of the public back in 2001. And I saw how all the networks, they essentially made it sound like we wanted to have simply a hearing, all these people willing to break national security oaths, testify under oath before a congressional hearing, just for the reality of UFOs, right? Totally omitting the element of illegal secret government operations. So, and, you know, since that time, you know, I've been interviewed on mainstream media outlets, you know, like CBS did an interview with me, and I told them, look, I'm not going to do this interview with you guys unless I can say on the air, and you guarantee me, like, and guys saw what CNN did, that we have the scientists within these unacknowledged special access programs that can prove we have 0-point energy. We don't need nuclear, oil, and coal for the last 70 years. They promised, the producer, she was almost in tears and said, I know I promised, but the higher executives made me cut that part out. And I found out who the higher executives are when a media company out of Hollywood wanted me to write this article about the control of media, being a witness and a newsman in the past, for the UFO ET issue. And I gladly accepted. The only way I could figure out how to wrap my head around this, you know, I was aware of all the witness testimonies, is to plug it into a chronological timeline of from the year 1900 to present day and start plugging in all these witness testimonies I was aware of over time and authenticated classified documents. And then when you start looking at all this information and seeing how it corroborates with each other, it starts to paint the bigger picture of what high probability of what the hidden picture is. You can't say you got the full picture because it's continually evolving, right? It's getting larger. But I became aware of how we've been infiltrated. We really didn't win the end of World War II. They heavily infiltrated. They took over control. They had a plan before the Nazis did. It's called Weltanschauungskrieg, the worldview warfare. They plan to infiltrate into our mainstream media, into our intelligence agencies, aerospace, pharmaceuticals, Hollywood, you know, everything to create this matrix of perception that would control, indoctrinate over time. And it's much easier to talk about this now, but, you know, you talked about this stuff 20 years ago. And it keeps its own best secrecy because the truth sounds like the most bizarre science fiction movie ever. You know, it inspired a hacker in the UK, Gary McKinnon, Scotsman.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Who found out about the truth about the secret solar warden program of the Navy. And it inspired my friend Dr. Michael Salla, who was a teaching professor at a major university who, interestingly enough, he had his class as an experiment watch the full 2 hours of the National Press Club, and his students didn't believe it. They thought it was that people were making up stuff. So it shows you the mentality, back in the year 2001. Today, people are starting to be a little bit more open because more things are getting exposed. Thank God, through alternative media, it's expanded much more. They don't have as big a grip, although they're trying desperately to censor and control the perceptions as much as possible. So here we are today, and that's a little bit about my background.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I see what you're saying about the censorship. I mean, I was born in the 80s. I was born in 1981. And in the early 90s, when you would watch like UFO programs or anything to do extraterrestrials, it was basically laughing stock. That's how the mainstream media was in those days. But now they are taking it a bit more serious, which is a good thing. But what I've found is, and this is quite interesting, that because I'm in the United Kingdom, I have to go and get all my stuff for the United States, because look, the BBC here and any other UK network will not show it. They don't talk about it.
Know that anything that gets green-lighted through BBC, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, any of the what is it, the Telegraph over there in the UK, any of the mainstream media controlled outlets, of which there's many, there's an agenda. There's always an agenda behind it. They started, I've been researching for decades, and what I find is, and anybody that does, they'll hit one "oh my God" after another and realize that they did effectively infiltrate in, 1950 Operation Mockingbird with Allen Dulles, and then 1954, after President Eisenhower had a meeting with the Galactic Federation of Worlds in February that year, and just May after that, they started the Bilderberg meetings, which the Bilderbergs, along with the Council of Foreign Relations, control the 6 corporations that control everything you see and hear, and they consolidated it. The CIA started meetings in Sun Valley, Idaho, back in 1983, when there was 50 media corporations. And what they did was, from 1983, every year they meet with all the media heads, and today it's like all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Google, all those people. And they consolidated it down to only 6 corporations, down to, I think it was like 2003 or so they did that. So the CIA has worked closely with these corporations. And so it's much easier to control 6 corporations than 50 companies, you can imagine. And so, billions of dollars go into think tank that engineer our perceptions and work to give our consent that moves toward an agenda that is not necessarily in the interest of the people of the planet.
Yeah. Dakota, would you like to? Because I know you've got...
The number of times I've been hearing spots I usually frequent here in Idaho come up when it comes to especially the latest disclosure files, it blows my mind. And there's a long list of people I want to scream, "I told you so" to right now.
Oh, yeah.
But Dan, one thing I've kind of noticed, and when it comes to, especially with everything getting released lately, I almost get the impression that a lot of those in control essentially just got lazy, and that's why so much is able to start leaking through these days. What are your thoughts on that?
They got, did you say lazy?
Yeah. They got overconfident and decided, you know what, they ain't gonna go anywhere.
Yeah.
Nothing gets released unless it was planned. Everything is very very orchestrated. Like say in 2017, when the New York Times released the Nimitz incident, the Tic Tac. All of a sudden, all of the mainstream media, all of the outlets, even your grandmother knows about the Tic Tac. It's like it saturates all the media. But these Senate UFO UAP hearings that they're having, like the one in 2021, which one of my witness friends, Mark McCandish, who revealed the alien reproduction vehicles back in an exhibit in 1988 that was faster than light craft. It was built back in the 1950s. As Dr. Greer in the recent 2023, just recently, he revealed that we have achieved anti-gravity by October 1954, which was 2 decades after Nazi Germany had developed anti-gravity back in 1934. Mike Tuber, U.S. Air Force intelligence specialist, came out publicly and revealed that the Tic Tac was actually U.S. technology. Then, 1 week before my dear friend Mark McCandish is suicided, they said he committed suicide. He was going to testify at the Senate UFO UAP hearing. Mike Tuber comes out and says, "I made the whole thing up. There is nothing to it." It's like somebody came to his front door and said, "Look, you're going to retract that testimony about the Tic Tac being U.S. technology, or else." And so he came out and said, "It was just a psychological study. I just made the whole thing up." Very suspicious, right? 1 week later, Mark, who is going to reveal that we had this advanced technology back in the 50s, testifying at the UFO UAP Senate hearing, commits suicide. But what do both of these testimonies reveal? They reveal that we have this technology. We've had it for a long time. And these intelligence specialists that are in charge of this whole thing at the UAP hearing, they completely go along with the narrative that, oh, we don't know what this is. This could be a threat. It could be China. This could be a concern. La la la. But thank God to one representative, Mr. Gallagher. He comes out and says, "Well, are you guys familiar with the Malmstrom Air Force Base incident?" One of our witnesses, Captain Robert Salas, was in charge of 10 nuclear-tipped ICBMs, and a red glowing UFO came overhead. The guards were up topside, freaking out with their weapons drawn. And the UFO shuts down all 10 nuclear-tipped ICBMs. Shuts them all down. And then he brought up the real hot potato. The real hot potato was the Admiral Wilson memo that got leaked. And I have a little story to tell on that if you want to hear.
Oh yes, please. I'm enjoying this. This is brilliant.
Well, in 1993, I've been kind of researching off and on since 1969, trying to understand why the extraterrestrials just don't come down and say, "Hey, we're here," and why the government keeps saying, "Oh, we don't know what this is. This is strange stuff," So I've been trying to research and find out. So I heard that Robert Lazar was for the first time publicly going to speak to the public outside of Area 51, a little town called Rachel, just outside of the base. And so I traveled there, and about a dozen and a half researchers were hitting him nonstop with questions for 2 hours, and no recordings were allowed whatsoever. I happened to have my camcorder on my lap and sitting in the front row, and recorded the full 2 hours. And it's up on the webmatrix.net on the 1993 timeline, if you want to check it out. And his testimony has been consistent over the years. Now, what happened was the base freaked out, the Nellis Air Force Base, Area 51, and they issued a security advisory, NRO, National Reconnaissance Office security advisory, to avoid these people, or else there will be disciplinary actions, against you. And on this list of this document were unacknowledged special access programs like Cosmic Ops and Magi Ops that Robert Lazar was working on in S4, reverse engineering. And so somehow Dr. Stephen Greer was able to acquire that document, and he went to the Pentagon to meet with the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Vice Admiral Thomas Wilson. He brought with him Commander Will Miller and Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut. And he tried to look into these unacknowledged special access programs. And the admiral, and his high constitutional authority, was basically threatened to drop the matter immediately, or he would lose rank and see an early retirement. So he was mad as hell, and that's what brought about the 2001 National Press Club, because he said, if you can get your people together that could testify under oath, there's another story about that. You have my permission to go to the media with this. This group is quote unquote illegal. Now, what Dr. Greer was doing back in 1993, when I was meeting with Bob Lazar, he was meeting with the CIA director, James Woolsey. President Clinton had an interest in the UFO subject and tried to have the CIA director looked into it. And the CIA director is being denied access. And so, he exhausted his military and intelligence channels. And so he brought in Dr. Stephen Greer, who was the director for the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, into a 3-hour meeting where he brought a huge stack of documents substantiating the reality. And the words out of the CIA director's mouth is, I know the subject's real. I'm trying to figure out why the hell I can't gain access to it. And so, becoming aware of the gravity of the situation, he met with some military advisors who advised him to start collecting witnesses, military, intelligence, and corporate witnesses. So from the year 1993 to the year 2001, he had collected over 500 military intelligence witnesses. I was the 100th videotaped witness and I was one of the 21 that were willing to go before the mainstream media. And so that's what brought about the 2001 National Press Club event. Now, why did Admiral Wilson get denied access? Why did the CIA director, James Woolsey, get denied access? That's another story, which we can go into if you wish.
I find it fascinating how there's this secret organization out there that's higher up than the government, higher up than the United States government, higher up than the CIA. And I find it, I'm blown away with how long these people have got away with so much. But their time's running out, I think. I think their time is running out.
Yeah, you found out that if you're not on it's called a bigot list. If you're not on the bigot list, it doesn't matter who you are, president, head of intelligence, you're not accessed into this. And now how this came about is that the Nazi SS developed a base in Antarctica, and they had an alliance with the Draco that gave them advanced technology. This violated the Prime Directive because they're not supposed to interfere with a evolving civilization. And so that's how Admiral Byrd was completely defeated in Operation High Jump. They defeated all their aircraft and everything. They sent down to destroy the Nazi base. So what happened was the original MJ-12 group that was headed by Admiral Roscoe Hillenkotter was trying to warn about the dangers of secrecy surrounding the UFO issue. He was correct. During Eisenhower, they set up a new executive order that created a new MJ-12 group, which put Alan Dulles, which was MJ-1, who was infamous for the whole Nazi infiltration, bringing in thousands of Nazi spies into the CIA, and Operation Paperclip, rewriting the paperwork, for the Nazis and so forth. What happened was in February 1954, when Eisenhower met with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, they wanted to give us, amazing things for our world, extend our life, help us with the spiritual development, but they didn't want to give us, the technology until we evolved to a certain point. They warned us about the Nibiru Greys that were in orbit around our planet, that not to trust them at all. And so Eisenhower signed an alliance with the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Now, Alan Dulles, MJ1, went behind Eisenhower's back, and they wanted technology. And the Nibiru Greys, they were willing to give some technology in exchange for their hybrid program of abducting people. And so they went ahead and circumvented Eisenhower and gave them underground bases like Dulce and so forth. And they reneged on their agreement that was supposed to only take so many people. They took millions of people. It was their way of infiltrating and taking over our planet, which the Prime Directive had to have an amendment to in order to address. But they're no longer a concern, as Commander Demethor of the Galactic Federation hacked the code and destroyed the Queen, which their hive mind all connects to, and so they're no longer a threat. And so what happened in 1955, basically Eisenhower had to sign a surrender agreement with the Draco and the Nibiru. And so what happened is, ever since that time, even Eisenhower himself, he wanted to look in what was going on at Area 51 and S4, and they denied him access. They said, "Sir, you do not have jurisdiction." This was thanks to Rockefeller, who helped restructure the whole thing. Anyway, what happened was he said, "Well, I'm going to come in with the First Army, and I don't care what kind of secret program. We're going to come in and we're going to rip this thing apart." And so he wasn't kidding. So they allowed 2 CIA agents to give a report. One of them was in his deathbed. Richard Dolan interviewed him, told the whole story of how it happened. So ever since Eisenhower, every single president, CIA director, well, maybe George Bush Sr. got access, but they have not allowed access. And, even Jimmy Carter, who had a UFO experience, made his campaign promise to release the UFO files, but he was denied access by George Bush Sr. Our legal counsel, Daniel Sheehan, gave testimony of that. So that's been the situation since 1955, is that our government has been infiltrated. And Eisenhower in 1961, when he did his farewell address on television, he stated, only to take nothing for granted, that only an alert, knowledgeable citizenry could protect our future liberties and freedoms, and beware of the misplaced powers and unwarranted influences in the military-industrial complex, because the Nazis had infiltrated the military-industrial complex. And so we have the world today.
That's honestly something I want to ask Robert Kennedy Jr., who is someone we have actually discussed about coming on a show. One of his campaign promises is to release all the UFO files.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's something I personally want to ask him. Is like, if anybody's going to know what happens to people that start digging too far, it's going to be you. Half the reason why we want you on the show, but what are you going to do when you're denied access? Because clearly there is a power struggle. I've seen bits and pieces of it myself. What is going to be your plan to make sure you and the American people are going to be safe throughout all of it?
Well, none of this is going to come out until the deep state is whatever title you want to give them. They're an organized structure that there's interconnections between, what were called Nazis, the Vatican, secret societies, the MJ-12 operations, which may have a new title nowadays, that oversee this whole thing. Technology is not going to get released. The Invention Secrecy Act, 1951, thousands, over 6,000 at least, inventions having to do with anti-gravity, free energy, medical breakthroughs have all been suppressed. I had 10 years experience with this and witnessed firsthand, suicides, murders, national security orders being issued, met with scientists all over the planet. And I basically gave up. They got too much of a control on the issue of, power generation. So until we can clean house, the good news is that, let's see, Greg Braden had John Peterson of the Arlington Institute on his channel talking. He's part of the Arlington Institute, which is a U.S. Navy, Washington-based think tank. That he got 3 independent sources that, basically corroborate 100% with what Elena disclosed, and that is that the regressive extraterrestrials have been removed from our solar system back in 2021. So these ET overlords, the dark ones, of their minions, no longer have their higher echelon. Christopher, you were talking about the higher level. That was the higher level, which is no longer available to them, and so they're like kind of panicking, and they're getting exposed left and right. And so we're watching this theater play out. I believe that the plan that Thorhan gave to General Van Herk is this brilliant genius plan that is going to roll out, that the deep state's not going, they can't stop it.
See what once whoever they are that's left, the puppets that are left, that's controlling us all. See, once they are gone, how long do you think it'll take before a new age on this earth begins, a new technology age starts, where we can get rid of like fossil burning fuels, where we can start traveling among the stars alongside the other races?
Yeah, and Elena's seen the med beds inside the moon, which is not our moon. It's a hollow spaceship that's filled with these huge amount of med beds that are this holographic technology. That I actually worked with holographic technology back in the 1980s when I worked with Dr. Marcel Vogel on a camera device that was built in 1950s in England that could holographically project the energy of someone just using a drop of blood, and it could take a photograph and then move forwards and backwards in the time. And so this was patent, and thousands of photographs were taken. So, it was not something made up. And this is how Alex Collier describes what the Andromedas, interestingly, call a camera, where it holographically takes a photo of you and goes all the way back to your conception. And they can take out slides of time. And when everything was optimal, they can overlay that on you and age reverse you. And that's how they use the technology for the secret space program, for the 20 and back type of situations where they can, time and age regress a person back. But as far as your question goes about the timing on all this, when's this all going to happen? That's a question everybody asks. And you have to consider that this is in dynamic flux, and it's continually being updated and changed and everything like that. And so anybody that gives a date, I wouldn't trust because it is in a dynamic flux. But from what I understand, that we're going to start seeing more of their ships this year. So that's going to start the acclimation of the public to start asking questions and start coming into the realization after, decades of false indoctrination that you're not a lunatic into seeing flying saucers. And one thing leads to another. I would say more people are becoming educated on the world that they've been born into and the perception matrix that they have been indoctrinated into to believe. And like I always used to say back 20 years ago, it keeps its own best secrecy, because it just sounds so incredible that here we have the Nazis with reptilians, and you've got the Nordics. In order to have balance, the Galactic Federation of Worlds always works toward balance. And so they worked with the U.S. Navy, which developed the Solar Warden program, which launched back in the 1980s.
Yeah.
And these people start to have total recall after they take them and they serve 20 years in space, tour of duty, and then they age and time reverse them back to their point of enlistment and erase their memory as if nothing ever happened, right? And then they start living their life, and as 20 years goes by, they start to have total recall. And from 1980 to 2000s, 20 years, and the first secret space program witness that started to have memory recall was Michael Ralph, who worked with the Navy on Mars. And then you've had Tony Rodriguez on your show and others that have had this experience. That there's so many of them. My friend John Charles and others.
That's fascinating how they're actually doing that. So they're getting aged back again to their kind of younger self, and then their memories are getting totally wiped, and then they're going to live a normal life, and they're obviously starting to remember things that they did.
Yeah, they start to remember their service in space, and that must be I'm not a 20 and backer, but I don't. No, at least they did a good job on the memory wipe if they did. It's interesting. In communicating with Jen Hanna Reddy on, we were having a discussion, and he said, you don't want another Atlantis, you were there. And I said, I don't remember anything about my past life, in Atlantis. And he says, you have the technology to be able to look at my past life? And he says, yes, we do. And he said, well, you were a scientist taking care of a large crystal, and my specialty was holographic medicine, which is interesting because that's a huge interest of mine. My great-grandfather was the president of the Homeopathic Medical Society back in the 1920s when Rockefeller was trying to squash all of the natural medicine, homeopathy, and so forth. And so he was up against that. So I kind of have it in my DNA to feel this ambivalence toward the corrupt medical system that is doing evil things. And you have to think about 1946 is when they brought in all the Nazis into the CDC.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah, and the fluoride in the water system that was developed.
Oh yeah, to keep everybody stupid. Yeah. We don't want intelligent people asking a lot of questions and researching things. And just watch television and don't question.
I would say this is honestly mind-blowing, to say the least. But to kind of draw back to Dr. Greer and some of his connections with Rockefeller, what are your thoughts on Dr. Greer's work in general? I've experimented a lot with CE5 and managed to develop my own frequencies, which some people in the audience have been part of those experiments and have had various results with it. A lot of people seem cautious because they don't know exactly what the frequencies Dr. Greer tried to promote in order to help establish contact are. So what are your thoughts on it?
Frequencies, you said?
Yeah, like from the CE5 app.
Oh, you mean the CE5? Yeah. I've done maybe 5. Before 2001, I did a CE5 in Joshua Tree with Dr. Greer, and I asked him because I heard of a number of incidences where people had not the nicest experience with the reptilian. And I said, what about the reptilians? Because he always would say, all the extraterrestrials are benevolent. There are no, it's, bad ETs. It's all this, here on Earth. And he said, oh, the reptilians are sweet, so, I kind of went, yeah. And so my research, really started going in depth after 2001. And I noticed that Dr. Greer's, I'm familiar with some of those sounds and stuff on the CE5. They're, as far as I'm concerned, they're harmless. Not something I'm not aware of. I got exposed to them a number of times. That in the 2023 recent, when he had like 6 witnesses, I think, that some were talking about, anti-gravity crap, bringing down, human trafficking, drugs, and weapons exchanges, with these guys with no name tags or rank or, what service. These operations have been going on since, the Vatican gave all the Nazis passports and the rat lines. They started these drug operations, Zapata Oil Company with Bush Sr., who was working with the CIA with all this. And, when I was in Vietnam, a captain friend of mine saw the drugs being airlifted back and forth. So this whole drug operation, drugs, human trafficking, weapons sales, big money makers. And so they use these black methods of generating income. But back to Dr. Greer. That's the one thing I have. He had his life threatened not to go before the mainstream media in 2001. Courageously he did, and I commend him for all the work that he's been doing and bringing awareness and stuff like that. The only thing I have an issue with is this narrative that there is no regressive extraterrestrials in our galaxy. There's evidence that shows otherwise. He believes that anyone who's had like a bad ET experience has actually had a screen memory implant, but not all of them. Maybe some. They do have that technology. I know he does these CE5s. If you were to have like something that comes down and wants to eat you, you probably wouldn't be able to have very many people show up. But I think there's something else beyond that. I find it interesting that the only other element I can find that says that all the extraterrestrials are benevolent and only life on Earth is an issue is the company in Rome, the religious institute with the letter V. So you just wonder, if they were to have, my purely speculation here on my part, but if you were to, if the inevitable contact with benevolent races and extraterrestrial was to come to Earth, the religious institutions would, a lot would get exposed, and
yeah.
they would want
Oh, yeah.
to maintain power and control, as they always have, as authenticated top secret MJ12 reports have revealed that the V company had wanted to have containment of the extraterrestrial issue. This is going back into the early 50s, working with the government to keep the public from becoming aware. And they were afraid that mass sightings would be revealed. So, it's kind of a hard one to wrap my mind around, just trying to figure out, because if we were to have contact, I don't think they would be able to maintain their control status that they have.
Oh no.
So
No,
I'm not sure exactly why he's a very intelligent person, and I'm sure he's been exposed to other information, but to say that there are no regressive extraterrestrials, there's so much evidence that's contrary to that.
Yeah.
Of course,
Thank God we don't have to worry about it, because they're all gone since 2021. So I just want to say that.
Yeah. Don't worry, the probes ain't coming.
Oh, they're pissed. The Nebus, the queen is dead. So we don't have to worry about the Nebus anymore. But the Draco, it's interesting that Office of Naval Intelligence was working with Leslie Stevens, with Gene Roddenberry, to give the Star Trek script, which gave the prime directive, which Dr. Michael Salla found that it was almost the exact same that Thorhan gave. In other words, it was from the Galactic Federation of Worlds. All these concepts of warp drives and teleportation, all this stuff was to seed our consciousness about this, to be able to accept this type of these concepts in our future reality. And so yeah, it's it's like the badass Klingons are basically the Draco reptilians, and the Borg with the
I
queen.
find Draco's very interesting.
Yeah, the queen, the Borg, they was simulate. That's what basically the Nebu Greys were. So they have these represented in the science fiction, but it's going to be interesting, because the reptilians are pissed, but we have not only the Galactic Federation of Worlds on our side, but we also have the Intergalactic Confederation, which has 500 motherships. Each one have thousands of ships inside of it, sitting behind Jupiter. And then we have the Anunnaki, the Enlil, one that was playing Yahweh in the Bible and stuff like that. The evil extraterrestrial is playing God. He's no more. Elena was actually at the trial. It was taken care of. He's out of the business. So Prince Ea, or Inky, is now able to give us our original DNA code, which is being enabled in the medbeds in the moon. And so we have the Anunnaki supporting us, the Intergalactic Confederation. We got the Galactic Federation of Worlds. And on top of it, Elena just met with the Nigumak, which are these really scary looking beings.
Oh, yeah.
That
I've never heard of them before.
That's interesting. The deep state through Hollywood tried to make them as the bad aliens that, in Independence Day, that said, I want you to die,
Are they not highly sophisticated? Are they not? I'm sure I read something somewhere that they're highly sophisticated. Their technology is meant to be amazing.
One more time, Christopher. I'm sorry. I got the next amazing.
Right. I'll try and say this simply. The aliens that were shown in Independence Day, I know that they're real. Are they not meant to be highly advanced, one of the most advanced species in the galaxy? I've heard
Oh yeah,
stories about
they're
that.
highly advanced, and they're scary, but they're kind, and they're intelligent, and they've been given the prime directive, and they like it. They like it. It's a good plan. It's a nice moral base. Thank God there's something like that out there. And they're considering joining, and they're the nemesis of the reptilians, of the Draco, and the Dracos are scared to death of them. So they join. Already we have a we're what's the word? It's like an invincible force right now to protect Earth. So we're in good shape. They just have to clean house because they're not here, like Elena has said many times. They're not here to save us. They're here to assist us in saving ourselves. And so one of the first things is we have to do is to thank God for shows like yours and others that help awaken the public to this bizarre science fiction reality that's been hidden from all of us, that we need to understand it. But more people are waking up all the time. They see the deep state fumbling because they're panicking. It's like a desperate animal into a corner that is going to start making stupid moves and revealing itself more and more, because it has to operate in secrecy, because if people see what it is, because the media, they focus on creating division amongst us through race, spirituality, political, you name it, to keep us fighting amongst ourselves and opposed to ourselves, where we don't see the true enemy of the people, which is the infiltration of our information systems by the enemy.
Go.
It's very true. And honestly, with what's coming, people are not going to believe it. With what's coming, I honestly am dumbfounded, Chris.
I'm this is one of the amazing shows. This is what I love, is getting a really good guest like you, Dan, coming on. And I'm trying to speak really slow.
Oh, not a problem, mate.
Can you tell us a little bit about the crystals that you use? Because I found that fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit about your crystals and how you use crystals in your field?
Use crystals, were you saying?
Yes. Can you tell?
Crystals.
Can you tell us a little more? Yeah.
These things. Yeah.
That's it.
Well, you can change the outcome of the planetary timeline using a crystal in your consciousness. We're all each a fractal of source, so therefore we create. And if you can, I recommend you go to marcelvogel.org. I have a link to a company. I have zero financial interest in any of this stuff, but they have instructed their cutters to follow the specifications that Jan Hanaredian has given on how to cut the crystal in respect to the hexagonal core of the crystal, which opens up this wormhole singularity, you could say, within the crystal, that when you squeeze it, this piezoelectric effect allows it to open up this gateway through your consciousness and through breath into the planetary matrix. And so Elena and I did a show with 1,700 people live, and I did a positive visualization of the future. And what happened was when everyone pulsed their breath and used whatever they had, people, sometimes have, natural crystals like that. But if you have a Vogel type of crystal, you have this, as Jen Han calls it, it's like a surgical tool that works
Yes.
into time and space that allows it to modify the holographic matrix. And so we had everybody pulse, and they had somebody recorded a spike on the Schumann resonance we hit, because all of our brain waves are all connected to the planetary. They actually, Dr. Schumann, who discovered this Earth ionospheric cavity, if you plot it, it looks almost identical to a human brainwave, and that there is a reciprocal relationship between all the minds that are on the planet and the Earth's Schumann resonance. And so when you're operating in gamma, which is the higher frequency going up to 40 hertz, it causes a spike. And so it was minor, but we just did a show yesterday, Elena and I, and our first class on choosing a crystal. And so we directed, you can get these, we call them the Vogel-Redion cut, in honor of Marcel Vogel, who was a pioneer on it, but with the extra specifications that Jen Hanna-Redion has given on how to cut the crystal. And they're like under $150 you can get, which is very affordable compared to, if you look at what the cost of a Vogel crystal is, it's quite expensive. So they almost, I think they sold out, but they're getting more in. But if everybody has one of these and they do this procedure, it might have quite an effect on the planetary timeline. So you wonder what you can do sitting at home, right? You have all the enemy has the power of the control of the media. They've got the military, and they have all these weapons and everything. But people can be at home with a crystal and change the planetary timeline with love. And if you use love, what it has is this transcending capability to go into the higher densities, and the higher densities form the lower densities, and so that's what creates reality. And it's one thing they've been very afraid of that we become aware of. In fact, in 1957, Professor Heinz Eisnick of University of London wrote a paper talking about hundreds of universities all taking out about the powers of human consciousness to affect reality, because they didn't want us to know about that. The Nazis are very much into the occult and understand the powers of consciousness and ways to and they're tied in deeply with the secret societies, which go back to the times of Akhenaten and the ancient mystery schools of Egypt.
Would anybody in the chat like to ask a couple questions?
Oh, I love questions. Yes.
Bring them on.
Come on, guys, in the chat. Ask Dan some questions. Here's your opportunity.
Besides Chris's brother, who's clearly here to be
Christopher, by the way, I love your accent. So
I know it's
reminds me of Scotty on Star Trek.
I can't take no more, Captain. The reactor goes.
The dilithium crystals are overloading. Yes.
Don't say Scotty. That's Elena's nickname for him.
Elena calls me Scotty. Oh God, Is that what's this? Is that one yet? Come on, guys. Does anybody in the chat want to ask a question? This is your opportunity. Type.
I'll pop over to YouTube, see if
I am a sucker for crystals, and I want to buy one of those now.
That's next on my shopping list.
I'm going to get 2.
I know it was.
I've never been on this Steam Labs platform before. It's working well, it seems.
Yes, we had to move from StreamYard because every time we did a live about maybe this subject, it just went haywire and it wouldn't let us speak.
Here's one from
Oh.
Renee Moss. How do
Oh,
I
yeah,
get
it
a
has it on
global iridium crystal? Yeah.
Go to marcelvogel.org. It's a site I did in his honor, and on the index list, you'll see there's a link down there, and a company is dealing with the Vogel iridion type of cut. They don't say iridion, but they instruct their cutters to respect the hexagonal chord, which Genhan says is very important in order to be able to get the effect. And stay tuned to our classes with Elena and I. We're going to be doing a whole series on expanding upon the research work of Dr. Marcel Vogel and the knowledge that's thousands of years in advance of our understanding from Genhan Iridion. Yes, thank you.
I'm going to definitely check that out.
Definitely make
Is
sure
that
you get
another
it on the
question?
stream for the platforms that don't see the chat.
For some reason, the chat on my Streamlabs isn't working for some weird reason, Dakota. I don't know why.
Are you sure it's not
It's just
operator
blank.
error?
I know, no, it's just like froze.
Hmm.
It's froze for me. But I've got my what would you call it? My phone on. So, I think there's a question in the chat there.
Let's see. Gerard asks, was there a global shift in frequency early last week that might have affected sensitive?
No. They contacted the company in Russia that does that. One of their oscillators went off, and what you saw when the weird stuff on the Schumann resonance was like a parasitic oscillation that was going off. So it was a malfunction.
Yeah. So Dots asks, Dan, have you ever tried remote viewing?
Oh yeah. My wife Rebecca and I we did it a couple of times with Dr. Greer. We're very good at it. we beat everybody. Yeah. But I don't do it very often.
All right, let's see.
What else we got?
Let's see. Here's one. Leba asks, do you believe that spheres are a great shape for quartz crystals?
Well, the sphere is multi-resonant to everything. The sphere represents all the harmonics of all the geometries in the universe, and therefore that's why they use crystal balls for scrying, where the energy is all focused into the center, because there's one point in a sphere which is in the center where all the external surfaces focus into. And so a sphere is a good shape. It all depends on the function that you wish to do with a crystal, but a sphere is a good shape.
There's another one there, Dakota. A Helena B, I think.
Haley, this is not a dumb question. I'm just going to say that right now. She was worried about sounding dumb, but Dan, is there a certain meditation you know of that is effective for altering the frequency / timelines of the planet if one doesn't have a Vogel crystal?
Well, this is a very good question, because it's important to, and Genhan continually confirms this in our exchanges, that it's the crystal is a tool, and it's us that does it. Our consciousness does it. So the quartz and water are both interdimensional bridges. So if you don't have a quartz crystal, you take a glass of water, visualize the most benevolent timeline, see it as it already is, visualize it into the water, pulse it with your breath, and then drink the water. It's one way to do it if you don't have a crystal, or just visualize, or just see that timeline. Remember, they need to use fear in order to keep us from. And what the fear does is it feeds the reality that we don't want. And so when you realize that you're a creative being and you can direct the forces of of creativity into the direction you wish by seeing that reality. It's a great power they don't wish you to know.
Any more questions, Dakota?
I was trying to see. We had one that was asking about your accent, but I already answered.
Yeah, I just messaged her in the back. I just messaged her. Yeah. It's quite difficult for me because I try and speak clearly, but when I get excited about something, I just spurt it out. And Dakota, it's taken him a year. He can understand me when I speak really, really quickly, but I have to remember that other people can't understand me.
Oh, can't understand why?
How do you know them? I'll just kid on him, Scott, if he starts.
Everybody loves the accent, but can't understand a damn thing that comes out of his mouth.
I know.
Yeah, no, you're doing great, Christopher. Just don't do a high speed run, or else you'll lose us.
We have sound effects with Streamlabs now, so if he starts going too fast, I can hit him with an air horn.
You can. There's actually another. There's a Dan. Can you see that one there?
Yeah, give me some more questions. More questions. Come
on, people.
Talk about the amendment to the Prime Directive. Yes, basically, the Nebu Greys were, they couldn't violate the Prime Directive directly, and so what they were doing was abducting women and impregnating them and taking the babies and doing for these underground hybrid programs, which they plan to take over our planet through hybrids and through the emotional bond of the mother and anyway, it's a big complicated thing, but that's no longer a concern. But the amendment was made so that they can't do that sneaky little workaround anymore. I could read the exact. If you go to elenadenan.org and click on the Prime Directive, you can see. I think it's the. Anyway, you'll see it's on the list, and it talks about how they this new amendment that won't allow those sneaky little bastards to try to do that again.
Definitely check it out, guys. I'm going to click on that now and save that, actually.
But they're no longer a concern, so all's good.
Do you not think that they might try and come back one day?
No. The Galactic Federation of Worlds, they're overseeing them, because once the Hive Queen in Orion was because they were able to hack Commander Demethor was if they were in stasis, and if they became awake and aware, the Queen would terminate them immediately. But they were able to keep them in stasis and figure out the code. It's incredible. He saved the galaxy, Commander Demethor, and sent a virus back to the Queen and destroyed the Queen. So now all these Greys, which was the Nebu Empire was massive. All these Greys all operated from this Hive Queen. And now the Queen's no more, so they have to go back to their own planetary matrix. And so the Galactic Federation of Worlds is overseeing all these Greys and making sure they all behave and and move in a good direction. So it's all being taken care of and overseen. So I have to worry about them. The only threat, if you can call it that, which is no longer really, is the Sakaar Empire, which has a massive empire across the galaxy that they, have come in and enslaved planets and done what they've done to our planet. But we have some very, very good help here today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the day that I see them land and show themselves, so we can actually meet them.
Yeah, they'll probably have the attractive, sexy, good-looking guys and girls come first, and then they'll probably the more different-looking ones ease it on, so that we can acclimate to all the variety. I mean, you can imagine. We've only got a little bit of variety on this planet that. it looks different, our Chinese, black people, Indian people, Asian people,
That's
whatever.
that's something that I've always wondered, how like the Federation look at us, because on this planet we don't like other races. Terrible. We're always fighting with different races. I mean, what's going to happen when they show up and there's purple ones and blue ones and green ones and
Yeah,
it's going
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. There's see, they have this perspective that we're all from source. We're all a fractal of source. So we're all equal, no matter what we look like. If we've got 12 eyes and antenna coming out of us, or whatever we look like. There isn't racism, in the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Everybody is considered an equal, and Earth will. The media is the culprit of they like to feed this division, and it really isn't. I don't have any issue with black people or Asian people or any other race. They're all. I have a issue with people who are a-holes. But that comes in all colors and shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I would just like to say this has been one of our most bestest shows I think we've ever done. And I would like to thank
Easily.
you so much, Dan, for coming on this show. And I would also like to thank the new subscribers for subscribing tonight, and the new people in the chat. Thank you so much. Dakota?
Now, I do want to thank you for coming on, Dan. This has definitely been quite an eye-opener for so much that's honestly going on. And like you said, I honestly can't wait till they show up. They're probably going to send down the sexy ones, but unfortunately, in my case, I got unfortunately, as quite a few people in the chat know enough about my story, I got to figure out how to explain to my family why the aliens on the spaceships coming down look an awful lot like me.
Yeah, you have quite an interesting background. Been watching some of your interviews in the past. Not very much, but just a little bit to get a flavor of who you are and who am I going to be talking to today. And it's an honor being on your show, and that I only do these shows, and I'm not. This is the last show I'm going to do, other than working with Elena on the crystal classes for some time. I only do it just because it's like preaching to the choir, as they say, when you do shows like this, because people who are open-minded who are researching, or already something triggered them to start to inquire, to try to understand what's going on in the world, and they look at the alternative media to try to get more insights. And it's my only interest is to help seed that little inquiry, so that once you start, that the crack in the dam starts to crack and get bigger and bigger until it comes to a flood, and you're saying, oh my god, it's like this is all real, and it's been going on for a long time. And the more of us become awake, the more of us will become awake, because it works that way. And the the fractal collective mind that we're all a part of. And so that's why I do these shows. And thank you both for your service and bringing this information out to the public. And we'll do it again sometime, possibly.
Thank you very much, Dan.
And we'll say this: I do look forward to meeting you at JISC in October.
Oh, you're going? Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just bought my tickets, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I got to get my tickets too. I'm running behind. So, and I'm going to be bringing 2 teams of scientists with me that'll demonstrate the frill generator in front of the God, it was like 1,000 people last time. It's probably going to be even more this time. So it's going to be pretty incredible.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what happens, because Elena's validated that, yes, I have worked with Thorhan in the past, but I also know that a couple of the kids that Thorhan and I rescued during the abduction rescues are also going to be in attendance. So I'm going to be interested to see what happens with that.
Well, I hear, some of the members of the Galactic Federation of Worlds are actually in the audience, and so it should be interesting.
Oh,
Right. Definitely will.
Right. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight, and hopefully you can understand me. Slowly, I the new.
You're doing great, Christopher.
AI's starting to catch up with you, Chris, so people will be all right.
It's fine. It's fine. AI will probably melt down. Catch you later, everybody.
Much love, y'all.
Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Thanks for tuning into the Bald and Bonkers Show. If you enjoyed the show and want to show your support, head over to our website at baldandbonkers.net. There, you'll find our merch, services, and more. Thanks for being part of the Bald and Bonkers family, and we'll see you on the next episode. And remember, always keep an open mind and an open heart. You never know what may happen tomorrow.